Hop on with us as we dive into the latest topics, share some laughs, and bring you insightful conversations in and around the realm of ag. From down-home wisdom to cutting-edge tech, we've got what you need to fuel your curiosity. So tune in, relax, and let's kick back. On the Tailgate, presented by Wade Incorporated.
We are back. Got some new faces on the, rephrase. We got a new face on the podcast. On the Tailgate today, we got Patrick Johnson back with us to talk Ops Center, analyze. Of course, I'm your host, Cade Moody. I've got a new co-host with us today. So we've got Mr. Matt Smith, the Western Region Manager for Wade Incorporated. So he's got a good background. I'll let him share a little bit about himself in just a little bit. And Riggs. So, Matt, back to...
Just your normal.
Just your normal Riggs, back in the producer's seat. So before we get into, everybody knows Patrick. He's been on quite a few times. Obviously, you're a new face here with us. Tell us a little bit about your background, when you started with Wade, but mainly where you came from, because I think it's going to apply a little bit here in this episode.
Good deal. Thanks for having me. Matt Smith. I have grown up. Most of my life has been in the Mississippi Delta. Grew up in Morgan City, Mississippi. Graduated from Mississippi State in 1998.
Wow.
Yeah. Just a little time ago.
I was born in 95.
Thank you. Thank you. My bald head. My bald head doesn't sound that old.
It doesn't sound.
No, so a little bit about myself. Like I said, grew up here, went to Mississippi State, farmed with my brother for 4 years before getting into ag retail back in 2002. Grew up on a family farm. Most of my family has farmed in the Delta here, so very blessed and fortunate. And I started here in August of last year. So,
man, it's crazy. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, yeah. For sure. So when you came on board, and I know this because I was, of course, I'm in the telefarm department. Patrick's in the telefarm department. Your office is right next to ours. We're data nerds when it comes to all of this stuff. And then you came in and saw some of what this equipment was capable of, what the operations center was capable of. And I feel like it kind of took you back a little bit, took you by surprise what was out there.
It surprised me. Like I said, ag retail for most of my career is where I had worked a little bit with an ag supplier. Planting data, harvest data in my prior life has been very important. Important not because we're trying to gather the customer's data. It's so that you can take that data and take it back to that grower so that they can use it and be more efficient. At the end of the day, increase their bottom line. Well, how do you do that? You've got to get data into a system that you can get it back readily available. First and foremost, it's the timing of it. You know, it's only good data if you can get it back in the amount of time that will allow them to make a decision for the next year.
Exactly, yeah.
Number one. Number two is having a format that is pretty easy to use. We know our lives are busy working for Wade Incorporated, but you imagine the grower customer every day, the decisions they're having to make. They're only going to use the technology that's pretty easy for them to make.
Convenient, yeah.
Convenient, fast, accurate decisions.
Yep.
And so when I got here, I thought I knew some of that technology. It blew my mind what Operations Center can do. The equipment, yes, it's amazing, but when you're able to, get that, upload and download information to and from our equipment, it's a game changer.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into the Analyze tab because that's where all that data is housed. So, like we said, this is the Analyze portion of our Ops Center deep dive series. In the Analyze tab on Operations Center, you've got 5 different little subsections. You got Field Analyzer, Harvest Profit, Machine Analyzer, machine reports, and work analyzer. And we're going to dive into a few of those today. So I want to start with harvest profit. Patrick, not a huge take rate of harvest profit yet, but it is a good budgeting tool and a kind of a what-if financial analysis, I believe, of the operation. What do you know about harvest profit? And if somebody's interested, what do they need to do?
I thought, really don't understand totally why there's not more take rate, actually. Maybe that's partly our fault, some. I mean, we don't normally, that's not part of an op center meeting usually, but it is a phenomenal tool, as we talked about in one of the other sessions, right there in connections under the setup tab. And what it does is, it's like Matt was talking about data. Well, it takes your pretty little maps where you can see low yields or high yields, but it also it brings in the financial side. So in this work analyzer tool, you can go into sustainability, option, pull in your input cost, and you can extract out of that exactly what area of that field made money, what area of that field did not make money. So it's putting a dollar figure on all of this data is what it's doing.
Yep. And then, for the longest time when we were getting in front of customers with Operations Center, early in our Wade Incorporated careers, we would talk about how Op Center stayed away from the dollar signs. It's all pounds, units, seed, whatever other unit it may be, but it stayed away from the dollar sign. And then harvest profit came along. And it is a separate entity. It's a connection to Operations Center that you can directly link to your Analyze page. But it does bring in that dollar sign.
Yep.
And so, maybe that's why we haven't pushed it as hard, even though it is a great tool.
Yeah, and we don't have any interest in seeing that financial side.
Yeah.
That's between the grower and his own data. Like you say, that's a separate entity. That's a separate login. They have to make that connection, and we don't access that. We have no desire to access that because that's between an agronomist and his grower and trying to make decisions.
So I've got a question there. If a customer, at the end of the day, they're looking for their best return on their investment, so it's ROI driven. On Op Center, if we're measuring, I believe, and I think anyone would, you can only make decisions off, something you can measure. So, I would think, now granted, I do not, hence I'm learning about Operations Center every day. I think that's an important item that the customer needs to see, because it's not just a pretty piece of equipment or a pretty map. They're not going to spend unless they know that they're getting that return. So is it, when you're saying the dollar sign, is that the calculator at the end that's able to say, okay, you made $15, $20 per acre?
Yeah, so think of it as a budgeting tool. So you have they input, and Matt, you've probably seen similar programs with other companies. Yeah. Where you input your cost, your chemical cost, your seed cost.
Yep. So that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so the system in itself takes, again, good data, which we have already discussed what it takes for that, but good solid data, and then that system is able to take those input values and break it down. Of course, how you marketed your crop,
right,
and put all that together, and you see a profit loss.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at once a piece of equipment's being used, I was looking at something different. So the budgeting tool is we've seen that with every.
Yeah, everybody has a budgeting tool, and
so
this is kind of taking that and carrying it through to the end.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just seamless with all the data that's coming through with that equipment. So if we talked in the plan or the setup episode about tank mixes. So instead of me having a tank mix called burn down and it being 12 gallons of burn down, if you build a tank mix correct and you put your products, you break your products down. I got X ounces of this. I got X ounces of this. I got a gallon of this. Here's my carrier. Then harvest profit, as you spray that 12 gallons, Op Center is going to say, okay, you sprayed X gallons of this, X gallons of this. It'll break it all down. Harvest profit will take, and will other budgeting platforms that are connections, will take that, convert it to that dollar figure that you assigned to give you that cost per acre.
I'm following you now.
Yeah, but it's a good tool. Like I said, I mean, we're more than happy to. We got demos available for Harvest Profit because it is Op Center is a free tool. Harvest Profit is a separate tool for a fee. So, but if somebody's interested, you're more than welcome to talk to your IntelliFarm representative. We'll have that conversation. Kind of want to skip around here and talk about machine reports. So machine reports, how I've seen them used, and Patrick, you feel free to add on here, but customers want to know every morning, they want an email in their inbox, how much fuel I got in this tractor, how many hours are on this tractor, utilization of certain technologies on this tractor. It's more of an email-based tool.
Yeah, you customize it.
Right, you build it. Build your report.
Build your report how you want it, what you want to see in your email the next morning.
Yeah, but you're basically just setting up an automatic report. It's stuff that you can go find through the machine analyzer tool, which we'll talk about next. But instead of me having to go dig for it, it's just going to shoot me, boom, there everything is right there in a email snip.
Yeah, and the machine analysis, it caught me off guard with a couple of growers probably a few years ago because we focus so much of our time learning Op Center, but from a client, farm, field boundary, that's all we talked about, right? Yield maps or something like that. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, a couple farmers over the course of a year, they wanted to dive in machine analytics. So I'll be honest, I had not really,
spent a lot of time to see exactly what all is there, but they wanted to see percent working time. They wanted to see percent driving time. They wanted to see percent idle time.
Idle time, yep.
And then now you're able to also attach an operator to those machines, and boy,
dive into all kinds of
now
metrics.
you have a whole other metric.
Yeah, fuel burn per tractor. Yeah. You got a 310 and a 280. Look at engine utilization. Do you need that extra horsepower? It's a powerful tool, and a lot of that is moving into Work Analyzer, which I love. I love because Work Analyzer is where we've lived forever.
Yes.
That's kind of our Work Analyzer is your master Excel spreadsheet for your farm. It's where you go in there and you filter for, all right, planting 2025 corn. Boom, there's every field. There's every tractor. There's every operator. If I've got the later model Deere planters, it'll break down every planter, give me, of course, the agronomics. What was my ground contact? What was my population, speed, downforce, margin, singulation. But then also you hit that equipment button up there, and it switches to here's how many gallons per acre this tractor burned. Here's how many gallons per hour this tractor burned. Here's how fast this tractor was going. Here's how fast this operator was going. You can run all the report. It's just like having, and I know you're a big pivot table guy. Me and you are both some Excel nerds, so I'm going to use that. It's like having a live pivot table that you can do whatever you want to with on that operation.
That's what, when I first got into it, that is what it stood out to me, and we joke about it, but a pivot table. You can look at it. For every piece of information you listed off there, many customers may not want to see all of it, but some do.
Yeah.
And so the beauty is you have all of it, and you're able to seamlessly pick and choose what is speaking to you or what you're trying to review at that time.
Yeah, you got the guy that wants to go see how many acres they planted, that surface level information. you got access to that right quick. Or you got the guy that wants to know what tractor was applying more downforce in field number 6, when going 7 miles an hour. You got that info. I mean, it's like you said, it's not cookie cutter. It's here's the data. Use as much or as little of it as you want to.
And it's easy to obtain.
Yes.
The steps in the process, for at least what I've used it for, I find it very, very routinely now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Doing it a few times.
It's just like the other, just using light field analyze. It's just drop down boxes. You're just checking.
You filter it however you want to.
Filter it how you want. Yeah.
And we'll save that data as far back as you have data. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. No more. You don't have to worry about those books on the shelf or flipping through that kind of stuff. You got data back. I got customers with data back 2010 from older systems that they put in there.
Yep.
So it'll log it. And the other thing, so you plant correctly by variety. You send that variety locator file to that combine in a work plan. That combine goes and harvests that field by variety correctly. I have the ability to go in there and filter for harvest 2024 and click the varieties button, and it's going to spit out, boom, there is each variety and every acre that it was harvested over across my entire operation or a specific farm or a specific client or a specific machine. Here's how it performed. I mean, at the click of a button, I've got access to that.
No more
that information.
Multiple program usage. It's
Yep.
layer after layer of data, and that's what amazes me.
Something that we don't talk about much, but you'd be surprised the calls we get for an insurance claim, a drift complaint. You name it, whatever, corn was, storm blew it down, or, something that they can turn in to their insurance, documentation. It's right there. I mean, I've been able to simply go in, I get a call, and this has happened multiple times over the last couple of years. Simply export exactly what they need right to them. All they got to do is hit the printer button.
You go straight to the FSA office.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me ask this question. As far as ag retail, ag suppliers, I would think they would be very interested if they're selling seed or they're wanting to see how their herbicide or fungicide, insecticide gets managed and measured. I would imagine you guys have had some dealings with those types of companies. That are they asking for some of that same information?
Not only, well, yeah, you're exactly right. This is their product. They want to see it perform. So, do they want to see it up against competitors? Do they, they can set that demo up however they want. But ultimately, like you said, was it applied correctly? Was it managed correctly? But at the end of the year, they're testing their own product, and it's data that they can count on. I mean, it's you plan it correctly, you manage it through the year correctly. Like Kate said, you're able to bring in for like varieties. That combine can go across the field. It may be a 8 variety test plot, and it can pick up 8 different varieties in that test plot.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So it's high, and the next part of that is, and what we're starting to see now, is the partnerships.
That's what I was about to bring up. Yep. With the consultants, the retailers, the agronomists.
And they only do that if they know that they're getting accurate information. So that's another testament.
So you got now the grower is it actually makes all of them's lives a little I'm not going to say easy, but more efficient, because you've been in the seed treating world. You book seed, you start treating, but you start getting towards the end. Well, does he need 4 bulk bags? Does he need 2? If he's partnered in that organization and can see the progress of those planters, man, how many times have we over treated seed?
Way too many.
Way too many.
And seeing the equipment as it's moving through the field, it takes me back to the subsoiling. I mean, the soil sampling. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How many times would a grower say, "You don't have to call me. Follow my combine so you can get started pulling soil samples."
Yeah.
There again, now I'm sitting in my office or with whatever agronomist or whoever will be out there pulling those soil samples. If that grower's given permission to that person or that entity, now you're watching the combine and you're not having to. It's one less phone call, and you know exactly where you're going. You're not having to find out, through discussions.
We talked. I mentioned varieties and treating seed, but carry that to fall fertilizer, and now that agronomist or a fertilizer rep can see progress, and have fertilizer timed better to the field.
The efficiencies. At first I was looking at it from the grower customer's standpoint, it makes everyone more efficient.
For sure. Yes.
Our sales service team, the ag retailers that are calling on those guys. To me, I mean, what do you want to do? You want to be able to work smarter, not harder, and that's exactly what this is doing.
I think y'all just created a new episode. I'm writing that down over here.
Well, I've got a question about planters.
Mm-hmm.
If unless y'all want to go another direction, from older planters compared to our new, what are you seeing there as far as from customers that we know that they're more efficient and also when you're able to be more efficient and not give up any precision, are you seeing that they're still is our equipment been able to stay precision driven oriented, with the speed that's coming compared to the older planters?
Exceed it. We exceeded it.
Well, it's not even in the ballpark, to be honest with you. And there's multiple great planters out there. It is. But yeah, when you go to talking about an older chain driven planter where you were lucky to plant 20 acres an hour, and we're at 40 to 50 acres an hour now.
Oh, wow.
Kate, am I right close
You
on
spot
those
on with
numbers?
the 38 foot. You pushing 60 with a 40.
Yeah. So, and it's more accurate. And when you go behind that planter, what that monitor's telling you, it's back there. It's in the dirt. You can take a tape measure. You can dig. It is at the depth it's supposed to be at, and the singulation, and ultimately that's driving yield right there.
So I'm gonna use this to segue into our field analyzer portion because we're gonna rein this back on the analyze portion because that's exactly what it is. You're running faster. You're running sprayers faster. You're running planters faster. You're running combines faster. You're running tillage faster. You're doing everything faster, doing everything more productive than you were. Op Center gives you the ability, the field analyzer tool gives you the ability to go back and just verify that it did exactly what you wanted it to do. Because it can. We talked on our planter episode. We had Mike Alderson in here. We're talking about the wow factor of that planter going by that customer at a demo the first time at 10 miles an hour. And their first reaction is they're nervous. You can tell. They're going to dig or they're going behind that planter looking for seed on top of the ground because there's no way.
Are my seeds
Yeah,
where they should be?
There's no way. You can see it. They're like, ooh. They walk behind there and they start looking and they realize real quick it's exactly where it's supposed to be. And like Patrick
That's
mentioned,
impressive.
that monitor is telling you it's exactly where it's supposed to be. But also Operations Center and Field Analyzer is telling you it's exactly where it's supposed to be.
So say you're doing a demo, like you're saying, on a customer, and he's got just a normal planter, chain drive planter, and then you go out there with a high speed. he can physically see the savings in fuel on that planter using the analyze.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll go. So in Field Analyzer, what I love to do, and it's not difficult to set up. It's a hidden button that you got to look for. But there's a tab down there at the bottom when you're running a comparative report called data analysis. So I'm going to go in there, and what I'm going to do, if I want to analyze that particular situation, let's say I got 2 310s in the field, both pulling 1725s, one of them is exact merge, one of them is a hydraulic drive planter. This guy's going 4.2, this guy's going 10.4. Okay. I can go in there, and of course, let's say you set this trial up perfectly, so they're alternating passes. They're skipping throughout the field. I'll go run for planning for that field, pull that pass up. I'm going to put the planning pass on the left, and I'm going to put the planning pass by equipment on the right. And I'm going to run data analysis. And what it's going to do is analyze all kinds of information that came in with that work layer, but it's going to do it by machine. So I'm going to get to see, all right, this planter had this much fuel per hour, fuel per acre. This planter had this as applied planning. This one was putting out this much downforce. This one, any metric that you want, hours per acre, acres per hour, productivity, anything you want, you've got access to. Well, in fact, this tool, and it's been there, the data analysis tool has been there, and it's extremely powerful, but it is hidden. And like I said, we had a very engaged customer in here a couple of weeks ago, and we were looking at some trials that he's been doing, some tillage trials. And I ran that analysis. I put the tillage up on one side, and I put harvest up on the other side, and it showed us based on the depth of tillage what was yielding better. And he was like, he said, I knew that was the number. He said, I'd done my own research. I didn't realize that I could hit that button and it dived that
see
deep
it in
into
Op
it.
Center.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what it is, and Patrick, I know we've had conversations with some of your customers before about, you can give me any layer you want to, any pretty map, any pretty colored map. And I may can draw some conclusions from it, but at the end of the day, it's just a map.
Yeah.
It's not giving me any hardcore analytics. Well, data analysis will do that. All right, if you planted, let's say you're doing variable rate planting for the first time, you go in there and build your own prescription just to test it with TELUS, the free prescription creator and Op Center. I go run as applied planting and harvest at the end of the year. I hit data analysis. I give it 10 seconds to process. It says, all right, where you planted 28,000 seed, you yielded 205. Where you planted 30,000 seed, you yielded 208. It breaks it all down for you, and you can see, all right, based on the price of seed, or maybe I'm doing variable rate fertilizer or whatever, this is where it peaked. Was this worth me putting extra seed out there, or is the seed, you can draw all kinds of conclusions.
The other conclusions across the soil types. And then you're able to see that is what the little bit that I have seen since I've been here, how easily you get to the to be able to get the information. Because if you have to go to 5 or 6 clicks,
right,
versus it's right there. And you were talking earlier about singulation, seeing all those different metrics on one screen, that was very powerful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I'm a customer, I find it amazing to be able to have it at their fingertips, and I do not see any customer not needing to see that, because that's separating old school farming with what you're doing today.
And then you bring in one feature I love in Field Analyzer is the little snippet tool.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
How you can go.
It's hidden over there, too. They hide all the good tools, don't they?
So when you can go into a field, especially these bigger fields, and, you see all these different colors across there, but you can see whether it's a low area, maybe a water fur mist, maybe some fur irrigation is not getting to some
off,
areas, or getting off fast enough. You can see that in the color, but man, when you can snip that out, and the Field Analyzer will take that snip and compare that section to the whole field average, then calculate what you just lost.
Yep. irrigation pivots. It's got a circle tool
Oh, yeah.
on it, so you can go in there and start at the pivot, take it out in the irrigated area, see what the irrigated portion did versus the dry land portion. You mentioned crop insurance earlier. I've had countless phone calls of a customer. You go look at a yield map and you see clear as day the drift claim.
Oh, no doubt.
You can see it
Wow.
clear as day. So what does he do? He goes in there and he draws that box around the area that you can see has been affected. You have, here's the selected zone versus the whole field. Immediately you've got your
your
loss.
information.
You've got your information that you need. Yep.
So you mentioned tillage a little bit ago. So planting and harvest in our prior lives, that was always the most important information to get, because they're wanting to see how much they either made or didn't make. So you mentioned a grower tillage wise. What was the grower able to see off that data?
Yeah. So, and I guess this goes back to the conversation that we've had with customers countless times is when we're trying to talk them into documenting tillage, and it's why I don't need this, and it's probably stemming from the old 2600 2630 mindset of I'm going to fill up my data card before I go planting, and I don't want
Right.
to fill up my display. Display storage is not a problem with these Gen 4s and Gen 5s. It's not an issue, and all your data's backed up in the Operations Center, so even if you did lose it, not a big deal. So why not document everything,
So-
tillage included? Because there is data, there is insights to be drawn from that information, just like there's insights to be drawn from which variety performed better. I'm going to rip this at 10 inches. I'm going to rip this at 16. Let's see what happens. I'm going to skip this field, or I'm going to skip this pass. Let's see what happens. You've got that information, and you've got that data analysis tool to come in and tell you, did it work or did it not work?
So you can have multiple years, 3, 4, 5 years.
That was a question I was trying to get into, was for the customer standpoint of when could you go, how far back could you go? So you can go back as far as you started documenting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't have to click nothing. They just think straight, go back there and just look at last year's tillage and see any of it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can compare whatever you want to any other pass. Currently, it is 2 passes, which I don't know what compared to 3 passes would look like. I feel like you run into a mathematical conundrum there. But comparing 2 passes, you can do whatever you want to.
So that customer, how long has he or she been?
That was
running the trial?
I think that was a 4-year trial.
Wow.
And what was crazy about it was not only could you see it in yield, but you could see the tillage effects on planter downforce.
Oh wow!
So that's just another whole people are like, well, that planter downforce, because I show planter downforce maps to try to sell active downforce systems. Look how much this planter had to adjust downforce to maintain the downforce margin that you wanted.
Right.
That's my pitch. And then we looked at this map with this customer, and it was a completely different why behind him wanting to see that. And his comments were, you can tell more about your operation through a planter applied downforce map than you can anything else. And there's a whole lot of truth to that. It is basically a compaction map of your farm. And
Well, that's
anything you do to
impressive.
get rid of that is
And when you're able to show yield increase, there goes your question.
Yeah.
You need every pass.
And then you go back
Documented.
to why do you document tillage?
There you go.
Well, also, if you're utilizing or wanting to utilize a financial tool, you want those passes. It's money. It costs money to till. You want that that's part of your expenses. So you want to document that.
And I think there's maybe a little bit of a misunderstanding of what exactly comes through with documentation. It's not, if I go out there and I'm disking at 7 inches. So I set it up for 7-inch depth. I'm getting a whole lot more than just a 7-inch depth layer from that tillage. Like you said, I'm getting, now my tractor is sending its fuel burn to the Operations Center during tillage. Now it's sending, if I'm running Tower RTK, a beautiful elevation map. If I've got questions or concerns about that low that you've been referring to, that tillage map is going to show me a nice little elevation map. I'm going to get tractor productivity. I got Riggs and Patrick running my 2 tillage tractors in the fall. We're having a little competition to see who can be more efficient, to see who gets those 2 ribeyes on Friday night or whatever. You want to drive a little productivity.
Well,
you got access to that because you're documenting. If you don't document, you lose every bit of that.
Yep.
Well, basically, I'm thinking of it as the health of all your equipment, the health of your tractors.
Yeah.
You're able to see, or sprayers, whatever it may be. You're able to see that. Why not have it?
And too, documentation. Whether you're looking at it from this analyzer tool or whatever, but think wider than where we're sitting right here. The different practices that are going on between the west side of our state and the east side of our state.
Oh,
And the north side. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about going from a deep tillage, rip it up, to a minimum till, to a strip till, to no till, to areas that now are planting probably 70-80% cover crop. It's complex when you move out of this area and start stretching out. Man, documentation is, and some of that's occurring on the same farm in certain areas. They may be tilling over here and no tilling over here with cover crop.
Well, I would think with the newer equipment that's coming on, how easy it is to document now. Versus 15, 20 years ago. So, I think that's why not do it? You're paying for not just that piece of equipment, but the technology that comes with it. So why not take full advantage of it?
And I think there's also, we sit here living in a world that's being taken over by AI. Everything. Every time you turn around, AI has unlocked a new tool or a new ability or it's made this easier and this easier. The best thing AI does is break down massive amounts of data.
Yep.
It's literally, that's where it shines, is to take an enormous data set that the human mind looks at and just sees numbers and then make it make sense. And you think about, you got a 3,000 acre operation or a 10,000 acre operation, it doesn't matter. You got billions of data points across that. You got billions of data points across a field.
Oh,
Yeah. But AI now, if it's unleashed with this data set, what questions could you ask that program to help you better your operation? Over the last 5 years, areas that I've disked at 7 inches performed how much better with this variety. Just whatever. You could ask it whatever.
But it cannot do that if you do not have the data.
And that's the thing.
captured.
We're not there yet. Will we ever get there? I'm sure we will. I can't tell you when or anything like that, but I can tell you that you documenting tillage in 2025 will matter when that technology comes out in 2028 or whenever.
Yeah.
But
No
it's
doubt.
important. Start logging everything now as much as you can so that you have access to that powerful resource.
you're doing everything now for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said from an insurance standpoint, but think about from the sustainability, being able to support your sustainable practices that you're having on the farm, the carbon credit piece. To me, especially these larger customers as they're growing larger and larger acres, you'd have to think that this would make the most sense for not just for large customers, but any type. But even more so, the larger you get, the more it would come in handy for making your decisions.
No doubt. We discussed that. What was it? 2 years ago, carbon credit started surfacing, and man, you sure want your documentation.
You got all the records.
You got
all the records.
records.
And
Yeah.
even we didn't even mention, but like in the simplest form, spray records.
Oh God.
You go run that sprayer with a seamlessly with a Gen 4, Gen 5, JD Link turned on. You got your records backed up immediately. as applied, what time, what was the weather doing while you were out there. You've got access to all that information in the palm of your hand. So,
Wow.
yep. So that's a pretty good talk there on the Analyze tab. I know there's a lot left uncovered, but we did dive into a lot there. And so maybe we'll have another deep. We could probably have an episode itself on Field Analyzer itself. Maybe do a live screen, put it up behind us, and go through that.
I think a live screen would be very effective.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was going to be a question
Yeah.
I had, because I think some of the screens that I have seen, just how much information you can get just off of one shot, and how easy it is.
because a majority of our farmers know about Field Analyzer. It's not that they don't know it's there, but it's like Cade said, where are those little hidden buttons?
There's a lot of users that use 10% of Operations Center.
Exactly.
There's very few that use 100.
Yes.
And there's a lot of power in that 90%.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, that may be something in the future to do live question and air on Operation.
That means we'd have to be live,
Well, that's fine.
which means I can't edit. Risky.
Yeah.
Y'all don't cancel us, please. Well, Matt, thank you for being on. Enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll have you again. I think we did tee off on another episode. You mentioned the partnerships, and I think partnerships, agronomists, consultants, retailers, whoever, I think partnerships is a major opportunity in Op Center to make, like you mentioned, everybody involved's life easier and make everybody more efficient. So I'm pretty sure we're going to draw something up, probably get you back on here in a few weeks to discuss that. Patrick, again, repeat guest. I think he's been on more podcasts than I've been on. So
Negative.
thank you all for your time. For the listeners out there, of course, again, if you got feedback, questions, you got topics that we need to cover, things that we need to go deeper on, please do email us on the tailgate at wadeinc.com. We'd love to hear from you. And that's it for today. We'll see y'all next time.